do put together a consultation? How do we get an idea of the person who has scheduled us for our time? They're putting their money forward to hear not just about themselves, but for some kind of counsel from you to that they can work with, some kind of aim. But you really can't, to me, it's what's so important is to get a real good idea of who that person is that you are going to be doing this consultation with. So it's your first impression of what that chart is, what it's about, looking at the structure. So before you can add in transits or progressions, I think it's important to understand the structure, their attitudes, their beliefs, possible behaviors, and the various tools that are available to us astrologers to put together a consultation and to put together a cogent way of looking at a natal chart. So what's in here is somewhat of an old style that I've used. And I think it's important to know that we flex how we do our consultations over time. As we learn new things, we let go of some things that maybe have not served us as well, but we do an assessment every so often. For example, when I put this together, I hadn't studied any kind of, or I may have just started doing Vedic astrology, and I spent 3 years learning that. I do not do any Vedic consultations because I'm certainly not ready. I'm quite a newbie in that regard. Now I've been doing Western astrology for, well, I hate to say this, Paul, I've been doing it for 50 years. I started in when was it, 1970? Yeah, 1970, and Ray Merriman was my first instructor. So these are some of the ideas that I've had and use. And the most important is, what kind of techniques do you use when you look at a chart? Have you developed a certain habit where you do the same thing every single time? Because if you look at the same thing every single time, I do believe and I do know that you won't miss the things that you found important before. Yes, I'm a Virgo ascendant, so I like the structure. I like the details. I want to get a good familiarity. But as an what I call an Uber Aries, in my own chart, I have the 7 fire and 6 cardinal signs. I say that proudly. Taking the time it's like, gosh, I could be doing something else. Well, no, you have to kind of really slow down and pay attention. Okay, so I think what we're going to be doing here is exploring one particular person, looking at their chart, and how we go about developing our judgment by first spending time with it. Now, this process should not really take much more of an hour once you have your habits down, but it's developing those things that you want to use in your chart or in their chart that tells you more about them. So let me click forward here. So we all have software, and we can do the chart real quickly. I recall back in 1970, out in when I lived in California, I bought my first HP calculator, and I turned a 1 hour doing charts by hand down to about 15. I got a chart down. I could do it in 15 minutes with the table of houses and everything else that's involved. But of course, with today's computers, we can knock it out in microseconds. but all of a sudden it's thrown in front of your eyes, everything that's involved. Now, I don't know if your charts look like what I have. I have a few asteroids. I have some trans-Neptunian planets here. And um, so how would you know where to start? Somewhere along the line, you've learned your own techniques. You know that you're not using a certain thing, and you have your own approach when when a chart is presented in front of you. So let's deconstruct this particular chart, and let's start where the chart begins. Whoops, wrong direction. All right. Well, this is an easy chart to look at. Yeah, but what it has in this chart, if this is the person who we're going to be talking to, we're starting out with a blank slate. We're starting out with something that can be filled in, something that our mind can grasp with the knowledge that we do have. And with this particular person, now this particular chart is done using a Placidus house system. But of course, you can pick any kind of house system you want, whether it's a whole sign, it's opiocentric, whether it's porphyry or whatever kind of chart wheel, Coke, whatever you want to use. That's entirely up to you. So in this particular case, I put in the ascendant. Now, what's important about the ascendant is that and one of my instructors I took a several years course with is Robert Corey. You can look up his, I recommend his courses on traditional and modern astrology. These methods that I'm presenting here today are a mix between what he's given and and I recommend a book if you can pick it up. There's about 26 different volumes of Jean-Baptiste Morin. That was an astrologer in the 17th century. And he gave a lot of ideas that bridged traditional astrology with modern concepts at that time. And you can pick up these books in Amazon. This one in particular is book number 21 in the Morana's system of horoscope interpretation. But I have digressed, so let's move forward. Taking the ascendant, you can probably read, if you have the whole chart in front of you, you can probably read most of it, 75 to 80% of a chart, I believe. You can read through the ascendant and the ascendant alone. When you put all the other stuff in, I won't necessarily call it fluff because it isn't. You get a deeper idea. But we know a lot about Capricorn. We know that it's the natural ruler of the 10th house. So we're bringing the notions of the 10th house into the first house. So the ascendant being the path that we are walking down, doesn't matter what our sun sign is, that Capricorn ascendant is the lessons to be learned and the lessons we are learning. Or whatever sign we are, walking down a Capricorn path, a Capricorn road. These concepts came from esoteric astrology, especially the writings by Alice Bailey. Now, so from there, what do we pick up? So we're looking at a chart that can tell us, well, you know what? 10th house has to do with career, how other people see you, and what kind of ideas how they go about structuring their own chart and what channel they put things out through. So this person does things through a Capricorn way. So what does that mean? It means, well, it's a cardinal sign, so they have a cardinal ascendant, so maybe a go-getter, let's get things started. It's also an earth sign, so let's do this in a practical way or in a structured way.